literally one right here. So what would you do if one day you witnessed a huge spaceship or flying saucer of some kind seemingly show up out of nowhere and then suddenly land in the middle of a big field or park of some kind? And then out steps a being who looks relatively human, but then this being eventually tells you, along with thousands, maybe even millions of other people, that either you change your ways, either you change your destructive ways, or accept your own fate, that fate being the destruction of the entire human race. What would you do? I mean, really, what would you do? Would you panic? I mean, naturally, of course, you would think that our natural inclination would be to panic. But then, let's say, after the panic subsides a little, and you're given enough time to really thoroughly think about it. I mean, really, what would you do? I myself have never really bothered to ponder such a scenario until after watching The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original 1951 movie, sci-fi, fantasy, drama. Yeah. And of course, this movie, though, being from the 1950s, I feel it has a very important message to share with all of mankind, the entire human race. And, because essentially what happens is, just like I described, this giant spaceship of some kind lands in the middle of this park. I believe it's Central Park or maybe somewhere close by. Of course, it's in New York City. Though I wouldn't be surprised if they actually filmed it in some other location. And so it lands, and then out steps this being. Unfortunately, he's not welcomed right away, which that's to be expected. We humans, we fear the unknown. So, I mean, he's shot before even getting a single word out. And then he's taken away by military army. And then after being looked over, he finds a way to escape and goes to this boarding house of sorts. I guess it was back when boarding houses were a much more common thing than they are today. And they had I guess the best way to compare them today would be like, if you go to a bed and breakfast type of thing today, and you pay to stay in a room for a certain amount of time. So, yeah, I guess they still actually had those back then, except they didn't call them like bed and breakfast. It was just boarding house of sorts. So he goes to this boarding house, gets a room, stays there, and meets different people there. Meets a single mother and her son, Bobby, and he befriends Bobby right away, and mostly because Bobby is so nosy and just insists on prying into his business, and then also too, this being, which by the way, this being is named Klaatu, 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 and he's able to blend amongst everyone else because he looks pretty much human. And I guess supposedly he's actually supposed to come from a planet which has an atmosphere very similar to Earth, so naturally, I guess it would make sense that he would look very much like the rest of us humans. With one exception, except that he's supposed to be like over 170 something years old, and because on his planet people live much longer due to their far greater technological advancements. Though there are no details given as to the specifics of this advanced technology. But it's still interesting nonetheless. It's pretty much after some time. I mean, as far as I could gather, I think the basic story of this movie was some kind of satire on, back then during the Cold War, how people were panicking and freaking out, and when really they had no solid proof or reason to freak out as much as they did. And I mean, that's what I've been able to assess. I mean, I didn't live back then during that Cold War era, and I mean, I'm glad I didn't, but at the same time, I guess similar to, I would say, how when today, when there's the whole threat of terrorism, when you hear large groups of people talking about, we gotta be afraid of the terrorists, they're gonna come, they're gonna kill us, or when people talk about, immigrants coming, the immigrants are gonna come, the illegals, and they take all our jobs, and which of course they're taking the jobs that nobody really wants to do, but still people are still freaking out and panicking, and that's what I would equate, the scenario in this movie to. And that's why I say, I believe it's like some kind of satire, some kind of commentary, more than anything else, on, the fact that back then during the Cold War era, people were panicking a lot, and it really did nothing to help. It didn't help anything. Just like with anything else, you panic over something that is out of your control, you're not going to help anything. So, and I believe there's a lot of merit in that. I believe it holds true, no matter what era you happen to live in. So, I definitely like that part of the story. I will say there's other parts where I felt were kind of flat, and more so because I believe they didn't, I don't know, I guess it seemed like the director or maybe the writer or whoever didn't know exactly how else to, I guess, allow the story to unfold or something. For me, I would say the ending is the best part. The end is the absolute best part, because Klaatu, he eventually speaks in front of this huge group of people, which I want to say they're associated with the UN in some kind of way, or majority of them are diplomats of some kind, representatives of different countries. And while I don't want to spoil it too much, but like I said, he does relay an important message to them. He does say something along the lines of the fact that where he comes from, he's part of this entire community, or I guess group, society of planets, more than one planet, in which they were able to do away with aggression. And because, the fact that they reached a point where, I'm only speculating, but the way he talked about it, that they reached a certain point in which they realized in order for them to continue living on, they had to do away with aggression. And therefore they created this, I guess you could say, pretty much like a race of these enforcers, which are like these organic, robotic things. Hence, there's a robot in this movie called GORT, which I believe stands for genetic, organic, genetically organic robotic technology or something along those lines. I only know because I looked it up. But pretty much these robots, they only enforce anything at the slightest sense of violence. When there's any kind of violence nearby, that's when they activate, and they just kill, whoever's perpetuating this violence, whoever is, committing some kind of crime. And while, yeah, that does seem very harsh, but eventually, I guess, where Klaatu came from on his planet, they decided to do this because they realized it was the quickest, most efficient way to guarantee that they could do away with aggression and therefore be free to pursue other things that, could prove to be more beneficial to society, which to me makes sense. I do definitely believe that the way in which they went about doing it is definitely harsh, but it makes sense. And I guess, and essentially towards the end, he kind of proposed that the human race should do something similar. But he doesn't really go into any details, really. And then he just kind of says, that, we will await your answer, And then eventually gets in the spaceship, back in the spaceship, flies away. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. So, which, I don't know if, I felt like maybe they could have delved a little bit further into that, but, it was the 50s, and, I wouldn't be surprised if they probably felt like nobody was really going to pay attention to that movie to begin with. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like, again, definitely has a very important message to share with everybody. Unfortunately, I do feel like, not everybody today, people aren't going to want to see this kind of movie. Hell, I don't even think people really liked the remake. There was that remake that starred Keanu Reeves as Klaatu, and I know a lot of people hated that, but I really liked that. I liked the remake. The remake itself, while it has a slightly different kind of message to share with the human race, it's still basically the same message. And, but I guess, when it comes to human beings, like, for most of us, I guess, like, we don't like being told that we're wrong. We don't like being told that, we don't like being told that we gotta learn to get along with each other. That's what I've noticed, over the years. That's what I've noticed. When we're all growing up, when we're all little kids, we're told, to play nice and be kind to people. But then really that's not the foundation of society. And, to me, I don't like that. I've never liked that, By the time, you reach adulthood, or even prior to that, but certainly by the time most of us reach adulthood, then we realize, nobody's playing nice. Nobody's playing fair. Nobody's being kind, for the most part. And so, yeah, it confuses us. And then, we're forced to perpetuate the hatred, the violence, the prejudice, and it becomes a never-ending cycle of suffering, and, it's not good. Not good. Well, that's how I feel. If you're wondering how I could take so much from one movie, I don't know. It's just probably has a lot to do with the fact that I tend to analyze as thoroughly as possible most of the time. I don't know. I guess, that's how I am, Probably also comes from the fact that I read a lot, so read a lot and watch a lot of movies. I just like to analyze everything that I tend to absorb, so yeah. So I mean, I'm sorry that this is so long, but as far as the rating goes just for this movie, I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10, so yeah. It's definitely worth watching, especially if you haven't seen it yet. You know, definitely check it out if you can, whenever you can. So, and recommend it to other people. So, yeah. Once again, I give it a 9 out of 10. So that'll do it for my review of The Day the Earth Stood Still. So thanks for watching this. And as always, until next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.